Hello, this is Professor Bustillo-Booth, and this is our wrap-up for weeks 1 and 2, part 1, for Business 101, Introduction to Business. During weeks 1 and 2, we went through several learning activities. The first is a set of onboarding steps that will help you fully engage the online course. And among the things that we did here is to develop a backup plan so that you have already written out or anticipated the kinds of things that you might experience technologically and have a course of action you can execute so that you can turn in your assignments on time. Remember that this course does not accept late work. And also keep in mind that a typical backup plan will require at least half an hour to more than an hour's time to execute. So it is really rather important that you start your assignment well in advance, so if anything happens, you can actually execute a backup plan should you need to. Among the other things that we did here is to become oriented to the class platforms, Canvas and Connect. And you may recall in the videos that those are the two learning management systems that we use heavily to deliver the online course. And Connect is access from Canvas, and then it takes you to a portal that will take you to Connect so that you can then complete your assignments at that platform called Connect. We also conducted a discussion around what's called Let's Talk, and that gave us a chance to get to know each other, and it gave me a chance to get a sense of the learning community, and I really appreciated our discussions there, and your very professional and thoughtful and meaningful engagement of your peers. So thank you for that, and let's keep that up. You also started to do the first of the Learn Smart activities, and in this case it was Chapter 1, Dynamics of Business and Economics. And Learn Smart is an adaptive learning technology that learns along with the student, meaning that as you read the passage, you will be presented certain practice questions that then assesses how much it is you have understood. And so as if you answer a question incorrectly, the system learns from that and presents you a differently phrased question, or even direct you to a passage back to the text so that you have a chance to learn more and then have an opportunity to answer another question so that you can earn points. Remember, in Learn Smart, you don't lose points, you just earn points. And the important thing to remember there is that it does take time to go through the process, and so to allot yourself plenty of time so that you can complete that work and earn the maximum points up to the deadline. And you also then engage in a week 2 discussion around globalization, trade, and jobs, and then dove into the interactive activity for Chapter 1 called Dynamics of Business and Economics, where you read case studies around concert ticket prices or the history of the American economy, a piece on Walmart, and did some interactive learning activities on economic systems where there was probably a drag and drop around communism and capitalism to help assess, again, your understanding and application of the concepts you've read through Chapter 1. For the remainder of this video, I would like you to go ahead and take note in paper and take careful notes, because this will be followed by the 2 videos that you'll watch, will be followed by a wrap-up quiz that will assess the degree you understood what was happening here and you followed along. So I'd like to make sure that you're successful, and one way to do that is to make sure you are taking notes as you listen. All right, and so let's start with a quick overview again of Chapter 1. So from an instructional perspective, I like to have things sort of be sandwiched, or at least, sort of the topics get introduced at different parts of the learning unit so that you have a chance to integrate it into your mind. So for example, you have the Learn Smart, you have the interactives, you have your discussions. I also provide your PowerPoints if you haven't already noticed them there on Canvas, and perhaps supplemental materials. But then at the end, I also like to put a ribbon around it and kind of go over, the main concepts, so it helps with your retention. So in this case, let's go over some main concepts. So the goal of business is to earn a profit, and it's a simple calculation where you have sales, right, your revenues, and then you deduct all your costs, and that is called profit. And then costs in this case can include taxes, right? So businesses are not into losing money. Sometimes they do lose money, and then they gain money, earn profit. But on balance, what they're really trying to do is an upward momentum where they are earning as opposed to losing profit. So, and then they do this by offering products or services, tangible or intangible. And the way I think about that is that a tangible product is one where, if you put your arms around it and you dropped it and it landed on your foot, you would say, ow. Okay, so that's tangible. Intangible is not necessarily something you can put your arms around or drop, right? So software, in many cases, is intangible. There might be tangible features to an intangible product. So, for example, the software, when it's downloaded, you can't pick it up and drop on your feet. But once upon a time, those did come, in CDs. No, they don't. They no longer do that for the most part. That was a tangible part of that product. So it is important to distinguish that. And an intangible product also is something like, your flight to Canada or California. You cannot really put your arms around the service called your flight, and it's but there are tangible parts of the delivery of that service, like the plane itself, right? Even though you couldn't put your arms around a plane, theoretically speaking, it could still land on your foot, and that would make it the tangible aspect of the intangible service, which was the flight, say, to California. All right. And so profitable businesses pay taxes, and it's a good place to be. Nobody wants to pay taxes necessarily, but if you're paying taxes, it means you are making money. And in our system, what happens to those taxes is that they support social institutions and government. So that's a good thing. So the ability to profit is not a simple endeavor. It requires a lot of skills to plan, to organize, to lead and control business operations, which is really sort of the job of management. And you also need to have strategies around marketing, which is the creation, the communication, and also the capturing of value, which we will discuss in some detail when we get to the marketing portions of the book. And then, of course, you need financial resources to fund the operations. There's no such thing as a free lunch. And business operations will always cost money, and so you want to make sure that you have that, the businesses have that in hand. So the businesses operate within a competitive environment. That should not be too surprising, and that in order to be profitable, the business, whatever it is, product or service, intangible or otherwise, they really need to produce quality products. Those products are the ones that tend to survive, the competition. And in order to be profitable, businesses have to operate efficiently. That means to reduce waste. And waste is equated to costs. And we'll talk more about that when we get to like automation and why, we have more, there are efficiency innovations now whose goal really is to reduce waste. So, and then in our society, this role of being increasingly socially responsible and ethical plays even a bigger role given the internet and how, basically customers are looking at supporting businesses that align with their values. That didn't used to be the case because a lot of the values were not easily known, but now in the age of the internet, that can be known rather quickly and be spread even faster. All right. And so in the business world, there are always stakeholders, and these are people that have a stake in the success of the business. So stakeholders can be shareholders, people who own stock. If it's a it's a publicly traded company. So those are the companies that you would see in the stock market. It could be employees. They have a stake in the success of the business. Also, customers. Customers are interested in the success of businesses, and if you had bought a product from Best Buy, and you had a problem with that product, you'd want to be able to have some reasonable expectation that your problem will be addressed by Best Buy, and so you have a stake in the success of that business. Otherwise, you could be stuck with a product that is no longer good, and then nobody to help you with it. So in business management, there are 4 roles of management. This is a very, very big topic and generally covered in a course called Management 283, Principles of Management, generally taught in the fall, although it can also be taught in other quarters. I teach it in the fall. And so if you're interested in learning more about those roles of management, around planning, organizing, leading teams, and to performance, and also controlling, which is really about compliance with the law, and also innovation and being able to move your organization through change. If you want to learn more about that, that's Management 283. What I put down here is Management 194, Principles of Leadership, which is really a significant and distinctly different role in all of management, and that is the idea of leading, and that's a lot more to do with strategy, vision, and inspiring people to achieve the goal. And for all these roles, really the purpose is the attainment of objectives and goals, and it's quite the skill set that one needs in order to be successful. All right, so marketing, a little bit of marketing. It is about the creation, the communication, and the capturing of value. And if you want to learn more about that, it's Management 282, Principles of Marketing. And those are typically taught around winter. And again, other quarters may be teaching that. I teach that in the winter time. So if you want to learn more about marketing, which is really exciting, I think it's a lot of fun. People think it's very creative. That might interest you. We'll cover a little bit of it as we move forward in the course. But as a subject matter, it is large, and so it requires its own course. And so in that, you will learn about the 4 Ps, the price, product, place, and promotion, which is, again, these are strategies used to create, communicate, capture value. And then also marketing has a lot to do with product management, and in this case, again, product can be tangible or intangible, and whether something is adopted or removed from the product mix, and also considerations about branding and positioning. When I think about branding, an easy one to sort of imagine are things like Coca-Cola as established brand. It is hugely successful. So is Apple. They position themselves as a particular kind of brand with a particular kind of narrative and with a particular kind of value sets, and that people buy. They don't just buy the software. They don't just drink the drink. I mean, the Coca-Cola, there's something else they're buying, and positioning and communicating that in the marketplace is quite the effort. And marketing, that is sort of the area of marketing. All right, so finance is another field. We don't necessarily have classes here that teach that, but if you're interested as you move forward into the 4-year universities, you will, or a baccalaureate degree, there are plenty of classes in finance that are really fascinating. People in finance get paid really well, but the idea is that it's about resources and managing these resources, and that's primarily the responsibility of the owner to make sure that there are enough resources there to operate the business, not only in a short term, but in a long-term basis. And owners particularly are interested in that because they have the most to lose. All right, so the economic foundations of business, really a topic that we will not be able to cover much in this class, but really is its own sort of subject matter, is the area of economics. It's really fascinating, and if you are interested in business, I highly recommend that you take Econ 101, which is a survey of economics, Econ 201, I believe that's microeconomics, and Econ 202, which is the study of macroeconomics, and they're both economics. It's just big picture, little picture, and more than that. But and the study of economics is really how resources are distributed for the production of goods and services within a social system. And so an economic system can be different from, from one social system to another. So resources, when we talk about that, we're talking about natural resources, like trees, water, that sort of thing. Human labor, so that's physical. It could also be the mine, right? And capital, which is really, dollars in our case. Okay, and then so the three types of economic systems are, the book goes over communism, socialism, and capitalism. And they're not typically pure. I mean, theoretically, people will talk about them as if they're pure, but when they walk and talk on real land, they really are blended. So let's talk about sort of the ideal communism real quick. Karl Marx was attributed to this, and he basically envisioned a classless society. So, and where people own all of the nation's resources, right? And that where everyone contributes according to their ability, and that they receive benefits according to need. That's really sort of the central premise of communism. And that people, through government, own and operate all business and factors of production, and that is centrally planned. The reality is that no two communist economy exists today. The theory was supposed to be efficient and equitable, but the reality really has shown that the effects of it are low standards of living, there are shortages for resources, and there are high prices, a lot of corruption, and there's little freedom. It's a very, very, very controlled state. And so, and it's declining around the world, particularly in a very a trade-dependent and interconnected world. A true communist economy just doesn't play well there. All right. So socialism is where, and this is sort of the ideal notion of it, is that when government owns and operates basic industries. So the postal services, the telephone, utilities are examples of that. All right. But that individuals own most businesses. Really, most businesses. And that government will do most of the central planning for the production of basic goods and services, about what they are, how they're produced, how much they cost, and when. But the individuals and businesses provide the other goods and services that are based on demand. And so the citizens in this case are very dependent on government for many of the goods and services, like health, education, and the military. And so in the reality, the modern examples of socialistic societies are Sweden, India, and Israel. And the people are free to vote for officials, and they choose their own jobs, although many of them, our jobs are government-centric. And they have higher standards of living than other economic systems. And that, they taught to be more stable than other economic systems. And they pay considerably higher taxes, and have on occasion higher unemployment rates. That can happen, but there are few pure socialistic nations. And let's go on to capitalism. And in this case, individuals own and operate the majority of businesses, right? And so it is in the context of competition, supply, and demand. And they determine the goods and services, again, what, how, and when. And that there are really two types of capitalism. One is pure capitalism, and the other one is modified capitalism. And in the first case, it's really a free market system where there are no government intervention. And Adam Smith was the father of this idea, where he said the invisible hand of competition will sort of rule the day. And that the government intervenes. And so for number two, in this case, modified capitalism, government intervenes and regulates businesses to some extent. All right, and so the reality is that modern day examples are, of course, our country, the United States, Australia, and Canada. And we regulate business through laws, like antitrust laws. So, we don't have big companies sort of taking over everything, where the consumer doesn't have choice and, pay the price whatever the company says to pay. Yes, we are suspicious of those kinds of entities in our system. All right, and then we do also have regulation of the post office, utilities, and telecommunications. Let me go back here for a minute, and I know that this particular video here is about to reach its 20-minute mark, so this will be part one, and I will come back to do part two.